while I have you here, I have an interesting, investment opportunity for you. Do you think you could sell knives? They cut pennies now. So I see several of you who should really be at home working on your problem sets, which, by the way, are due next Thursday and Friday. So we'll talk about that later. So, if I start screaming, somebody let me know. I'm pretty bad. I don't have good octave control. When I was asked to do this, I find myself being quite sort of ill-prepared compared to my fellow speakers tonight. It's been incredibly powerful to experience, and so I hope mine is not nearly as boring as I fear it might be. But as Hannah pointed out, I want to talk to you about my second semester. It was actually the second semester of graduate school. I put college. It's not her fault, mine. And the reason I want to talk about this particular semester of graduate school is because it was, at this point in my life, the most trying 4.5 months of my life, culminating in about a month-long period where I really didn't talk to anybody, friends, family, just kind of stayed in the apartment for a while. And so being here tonight and having sort of lived through my first year of being a professor at a wonderful college, I look back on this as a sort of learning experience, and I think there's something that I can sort of impart on you about this, especially the students. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I spent nearly my entire life in East Tennessee. It's a lovely place to grow up, mainly because you want to be successful so you can leave it. In economics, we call these things incentives, and so I wanted to get out. When I was 4 years old, I was at daycare, and my mom, she was supposed to come pick me up after work. It was about 5 o'clock. And at 11 p.m. that evening, it became quite apparent to a lot of people that there was nobody coming to pick me up. That's the last time that was the last time I ever was going to see my mom. Come to find out, I've had no relationship with her since that time. But what that moment sort of taught me very early on was that life was in no way fair, that I could never expect it to work out because I merely wanted it to work out that way. I would have to be taught this lesson a number of other times in my life, but even at that young age, I was sort of instilled with quite a bit of cynicism, and cynicism that I think ultimately paid off for me. I moved to East Tennessee with my father shortly after that event, started going to school in East Tennessee, and just was a normal kid. I didn't have a mom, but that wasn't that big of a deal. I had grandparents who sort of filled that role. I was sort of had the unbelievable opportunity to have a grandmother, which I just, in no way there's no way I'd be here tonight without her sort of lessons and sort of just immense wisdom that came out of this, Southern woman who I can assure you is the greatest cook in the world. And she would be horrified at the state of my hair and the size of my beard at the moment that I was speaking in front of you guys. But she used to tell me, she would send me off down the street to go play sports with my friends, she would always say, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And of course, that was her way of ensuring that you didn't do something really stupid, or at least that was her way. Remember that you're Todd Richard Yarbrough. That name means something, that you have to sort of create respect for us. And if you're an idiot, we don't want to be the kids, the parents who are raising an idiot. So that was sort of my sort of training in life, was sort of to do what the people in my life wanted me to do. When I was 14, my grandfather, who had been struggling with Parkinson's disease for a number of years, slowly sort of wilted before our eyes. He just kind of disappeared. He went from a man who was in business for the better part of 50 years, had been married for 57 years, and the span of 2 years went from a healthy 205 pounds to a 97-pound man who had lost all his hair and sort of was left moaning in his bed. Again, life is in no way fair, and we cannot expect it to be. So I pick up in that second semester of graduate school. Scholastically, my life has been easy. I was a straight-A student. in high school, in college. My first semester of graduate school went swimmingly. Everything was going really well. I was in a relationship. We were talking marriage. I was 23 years old. Everything seemed fine. The relationship quickly evaporated over the very sort of that course of that beginning of that semester. And I once again was confronted with the life is not fair, right? Life is not fair. I found it very easy to hide away from the very stresses of life. I'm in my second semester of graduate school. I am horrified at what this event may mean for the rest of my life, that I may not finish my PhD, that this thing that I've been working on since I was in kindergarten, right? Because to me, education was something that I never stopped. I began in kindergarten and kept going. But as I sort of sat in this apartment, dark, just dreary apartment, I'm sort of taken back, listening to Pink Floyd and the Smiths and Elliott Smith, really kind of soaking in the depression. I am reminded of my grandmother saying, remember who you are. And up to that point in my life, I was not someone who stayed in their apartment all day and didn't talk to people. That I was someone who cared very much about who he was, that I was very much someone who cared about where he was going in life, and that ultimately I wanted to be someone who imparted on to those around me a message of, regardless of the fact that life is not fair, and it isn't, it's all a probability. Everything you do and everything that happens to you is merely a probability, okay? You can increase or you can decrease the probability of good or bad events, right? You go to college, you're increasing the probability that you have a good job, right? You go to class, you increase the probability you'll do well in the exam. I promise. You don't seem to understand that always, but I promise. So remember who you are, right? Define who you are, remember who you are, and be that person, okay? You can overcome anything, big, small, we've heard that tonight, right? But the biggest thing is remember who you are and be that person. Thank you.